All right, let's take a little break from college football, and we're going to go into the world of hockey because the Utah Hockey Club continues to do just incredible things. You know, it's been a lot of fun watching this team kind of build into what it's becoming, and the community continue to get hyped around it. And joining us to kind of get us caught up to where we're at, you know, the college football season gets us all distracted, but getting us caught up to where we're at is the great Nick Olczyk. Nick, how you doing?
And it's great to be with you live from sunny, believe it or not, Seattle, Washington. They've had a real tough stretch talking to some people here of a lot of rainy days. So we brought the sun from Salt Lake here to Seattle and looking to keep the incredible road winning streak going, which is currently at 7. Setting the new mark for a team in their first ever season in the NHL. That is a new NHL record for the most consecutive road wins in a row. So looking to try and turn that 7 into a snowman today in Seattle.
So, Nick, I was reading a little bit about the Olczyk family, and the Olczyk family is to hockey what the Olsen family is to football. Just legacy, deep legacy. And I know that you guys kind of all live and exist in this world of hockey. It's a family-loving tradition for you guys, isn't it?
It really is, Hans. Really, hockey has been the only thing I've ever known, and I'm perfectly comfortable in saying that. I have, and my family has dedicated all of our lives to what we believe to be the greatest sport with the greatest people in the entire world. And you know, I'm confident in saying that everything I have, everything our family has, is because of the game of hockey, and just trying to continue to grow the game and be part of it at the highest level, which really every day, like, I don't want this to come off as too cheesy or sentimental, but I really do have to pinch myself every day. I wake up and I'm in the National Hockey League at some capacity. And I mean, look, any young kid growing up that plays hockey, you have the hope and the dream of playing in the NHL, and then to realize the older you get, the more you play, it might not be possible. So then, okay, how can I be a part of the league, at the highest level in any capacity? And I always just kind of had known that broadcasting was the way for me, whether it was in my bedroom at 6 years old, yelling at the TV, pretending to broadcast as I watched, or playing video games and broadcasting that way to kind of improve my craft. Hockey has been everything to me and to our family, and we feel sincerely indebted, and just to be part of it, man, it's absolutely incredible, and to be part of something in a new place like Salt Lake is equally as exciting.
Well, this Seattle territory is pretty familiar to you, isn't it, Nick? How tough is it to come in there and get a win?
Well, look, I mean, I'm pulling. Look, I'm pulling for both. No question about that. I spent 2 incredible seasons here in Seattle. Have some really deep ties here in terms of my dad being a TV broadcaster, my uncle an assistant general manager, and my brother being an amateur scout. So definitely got a lot of blood here in Seattle, and I'm always rooting for them, always rooting for their success on and off the ice, and obviously everything we got going on in Utah with me being there. But, in my time here, the last 2 years prior to coming to Utah, I had joined Seattle in their second and third years of existence. So I was not there technically from the very beginning, but went in there in year 2 and tried to do what I'm doing here in Utah. And that's not only teaching the game, but being able to explain the ins and outs and the incredible nuances of the fastest game on earth. And I think that's been an incredible challenge, a breath of fresh air in a lot of ways. And, just to be able to kind of, because when you're in a sport for so long, Hans, as you know, like in football, you take for granted some of the easy, or sort of quote easy rules that are just second nature to you. But then realizing, hey, there's a lot of people that don't know what icing is in hockey. They don't know what offsides is. So to help kind of shepherd those types of things into a new market is really exciting. But It's definitely great to be back here in Seattle to see a lot of familiar faces, and I've gotten a lot of warm welcomes, and looking forward to getting to the rink in about an hour and seeing a lot of people who have helped me and have been so instrumental in my career.
Well, I'm excited to see this Utah Hockey Club get off this 3-game losing streak. It was incredible because they go from, you have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was November 23rd till December 20th without back-to-back losses, almost a full month without back-to-back losses, and they've now strung 3 losses together, all at home: Anaheim, Dallas, and Colorado. So tell me what's happened here in this skid. What do you feel like has kind of fallen apart for them?
Well, I think when you look at the last couple of losses, taking into consideration Colorado, all of these games have been by a loss of a goal, like one goal. And I think that just goes to show the parity in the NHL. So last game against Colorado, right, and finished 4-1. The score was not indicative of how that game went. 2 empty net goals. That, in all reality, is yet another 1-goal game. So you look at the Colorado game, 1-goal game loss. Dallas, same thing. Anaheim in overtime. And then you go back even a little bit further, home game against Minnesota, overtime loss. At the beginning of the month of December, a 2-1 loss to the Dallas Stars. So these have been really close games. These are the margins. These are the tight games where it's a bounce one way or a bounce the other way, or a mistake that can cost you. But I think this team is playing some good hockey lately, and you're going to go through stretches where you play 3 1-goal games and you lose all of them. And then there's going to be another stretch at some point in the season where you play those exact same 3 games and the puck bounces your way. So I think the structure is still very much intact. I think the one thing that has still continued to be a bit of a struggle is just taking penalties for this team. 5th most penalties taken in the league to this point. And when that's the case, not only are you spending less time trying to play offense, but not all, but some of the top players for Utah kill penalties. You think about a guy like Mikhail Sergachev, who is just an absolute minute muncher and plays in every single situation. Like, those are taxing minutes to play on the penalty kill. Then you think about the guys who don't play on the PK but are instrumental on the offensive side, a guy like Clayton Keller and a guy like Nick Schmaltz. They don't traditionally play on the penalty kill, so they're sitting on the bench for 2 minutes straight and getting out of a rhythm, and they're not they're not going out on the ice every minute and a half or every 2 minutes. So I think that's one thing that could be an area to clean up, and it's kind of been a little bit of a bugaboo, I guess you could say, this year for the team, and that they spent a lot of time in the box. But with that being said, on the other side of it, their power play has been unbelievable recently. So, look, sometimes the bounces are going to go your way, sometimes they're not. But it's going to take a total team effort here in Seattle and moving forward, because especially on this road trip, then you go to Edmonton, Calgary, and Dallas. There's going to be some tough tests upcoming.
So, Nick, I feel like I'm starting to get my bearings in the world of hockey. I feel a lot better about it now than I used to. Bill Armstrong comes on with us once a week, and he does a great job taking a lot of dumb questions and making us not feel dumb about it. He's one of my favorite people. But I'm starting to feel a little bit more secure with it. But I want to start to get a little bit more into the scheme of it. You talk about the penalty kill. What exactly goes into your personnel decisions and then how you address the ice in a penalty kill setting? Like, what are your concepts that you're trying to get out on the ice?
Yeah. So at the end of the day, for those of our newer listeners, you take a penalty, your player goes to the box who took the penalty. Then it goes to 5-on-4, 5 skaters for them, 4 for you. So they have an advantage. They've got one more skater on the ice. They're going to try and take advantage of that. And because you have to balance and walk the line of caution, because if you're too aggressive when they have the puck in your zone, you're going to be pulled out of position, and maybe they make one pass, and then it's like a 4-on-3 at the net. And you really don't want that. Or it could be a 5-on-3 if one guy becomes a little bit too aggressive. So how Utah kills penalties, and I think really the overall scheme and the do's and don'ts of penalty killing is you want to pressure in zone when there's a bobbled puck, say the player's trying to stick handle and the puck goes up on edge and he's got to take an extra couple of split seconds to settle it down, that's a moment where as a penalty killer you can say, okay, I can accelerate a little bit, take a couple of steps towards him and try and break up that pass. So that's one scenario where you try to pressure on the PK. Second would be sometimes you'll see power plays rim the puck around the yellow kick plate, which is where the ice meets the boards, to try to get the puck to the other side of the ice to get a little bit more time with it.
Yeah.
That's another area where it's not easy to pick that puck up on the boards when it's going 30, 40, 50, 60 miles an hour, and you got to pick that puck up off the boards and make a play. So that's another instance where if you can read it and get there and time it, that's another way you can go and pressure, maybe force that player into a turnover, and then you clear it down the ice and the power play has to come 200 feet. Third, I would say if a player turns their back to you, maybe they face the boards to go find a loose puck, and they don't have full possession, but you think that you can make a play to maybe influence a decision that they want to make a little bit earlier than they're comfortable at making, then you can try and go there. So bobbled pucks, bad passes, puck rimmed around the boards, player turns their back, those are all the different scenarios. Whereas a penalty killer, other than that, you're kind of being more cautious. You're not collapsing and sitting back completely, but you do have to manage okay, if I try to be too aggressive and go out at a guy and he makes one pass by me, then I've got to cover all that distance I just traveled. And these power play players are too good because that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to bait you to come towards them so they move the puck past you, and then there's going to be a lot more space in behind. So I would say those. And another reason why the PK has been great has been because they have not allowed the power play very often to get into the zone and get set up. So say the face-off, right, the penalty's taken.
Yep.
Face-off happens to either the left or the right of Karel Vejmelka.
Okay. More
More times than not, head coach Andre Tourney is going to send out the best penalty-killing center, that being Kevin Stenlund. More times than not, he wins the face-off, right?
All right.
And then it comes back to Mikhail Sergachev, and he flings that puck all the way 200 feet down the ice, which is the length of an NHL hockey rink. Okay, cool. So now the power play has to go get the puck, retrieve it, and then break into the zone. I think Utah has done a great job of not allowing power plays to easily break into the zone. They kind of hold their blue line like the line of scrimmage in football. Like you don't want to give an inch. Now, if you stand up and you're too aggressive, that's when you leave yourself susceptible to guys getting caught up ice, and then it's going to be an odd man rush. Maybe it's a 3-on-1 or a 2-on-1 or something like that back the other way. So I think that they have done a really nice job in making life difficult for power plays to break into the zone because everybody's on the same wavelength. You get the defensemen being aggressive, the forwards are being aggressive as well. And I think the last thing I will say on this front is you'll often hear a phrase from coaches say, if one goes, we all go. So remember how I talked about in the beginning is that if there's a bobble puck or a bad pass, if one guy goes, then you have to have everybody kind of shade over because if the first guy who pressures can't get the puck, ideally you have someone there who's able to get into the battle, stay on the defensive side between the goalie and the puck because you don't want to get beat either, who's then able to collect the puck and clear it all the way down. So I could go on for days talking about this stuff, but I think it's smart pressure in the D zone and also making life difficult for power plays and not allowing them just to skate freely into the zone. They defend further up the ice with their pressure.
So, Nick, I believe I've seen 5-on-3 on the ice. How many players can you actually put in the box? How many can you stack it as many or?
In terms of the
guys
penalty kill, or you mean in the penalty box?
No, it's in terms of guys getting a penalty and be put in the box because I think I've seen a 5-on-3, two guys in the box at one time. How many can go to the box?
There's it's kind of unlimited, really. I mean, now obviously if you're a team that's continuing to take penalties, you're putting yourself in a really brutal position when it does go down to 5-on-3. But that I guess is the biggest discrepancy of skaters on the ice being 5-on-3. They can't be. Well, I guess the only time it could be a 6-on-3 is maybe at the end of the game, a team is down by a couple of goals, they pull their goalie.
Yeah.
Because if you pull your goaltender, then you can get a sixth skater on the ice. But in a normal situation, barring that, the biggest discrepancy between power play and penalty kill would be 5-on-3. The minimum amount of players you can have is 3. You can't go down to 2.
Okay.
And the most you'd be able to have if you pull the goalie is 6. So in terms of so if you've got a 5-on-3, the Utah has a 5-on-3, and then the other team takes another penalty, essentially that penalty time would just stack on. So instead of being a 2-minute 5-on-3, then it would probably be going to a 4-minute, so on and so forth. So there's really no maximum amount of players you can have in the penalty box. You could pack it like a can of sardines if you want, but obviously the team that's killing the penalties is going to be hurting in that regard.
Do you like the OT structure, the 3-on-3, and then down to a shootout?
I have two opinions on actually I've got three opinions on rule changes for the National Hockey League. First, Hans, before we get to overtime, I think that if the penalty kill scores, I think the penalty should come off the board. I think that'd be a great way to promote more offense, especially when you're down a man. So right now, if you score a shorthanded goal, the penalty just continues on and you have to kill off the rest of it. I think if you score a goal while you're down a man, I feel like that's a reward enough to negate the penalty. That's
at that point, your skater comes back on the ice.
Exactly. Then once you score, it would go back to 5-on-5 as opposed to 5-on-4.
But that's not how it is. If you got an extended penalty, you could put 3 in the net.
Exactly. 100%. But on the other hand, if it's a power play they score, then obviously your skater comes out of the box. It goes back to 5-on-5 in that regard. So I think that would be a cool way to generate a little bit more offense, especially for penalty killing teams. Maybe you'd see more power play goals because PK teams are cheating, right? They're trying to score because it's almost kind of equal incentive. Power play wants to score because they have a skater advantage. Okay, well, the PK is like, well, if we score, the penalty comes off, our guy gets to join us back, and we don't have to kill the penalty off anymore. So I think that'd be kind of interesting. But to your question about overtime, I think the league could really benefit if you put another couple minutes on the score clock. Right now, it's 5 minutes of 3-on-3. I think 3-on-3 of the great rule changes that this league has made, I think that has been one of the very best. The excitement back and forth. If someone falls or there's a bad pass, you know
Trouble.
that it's going to be maybe a 2-on-0 going the other way or a 3-on-1. Like the excitement level, especially with what everybody saw in early this month against Minnesota, that incredible 5-4 overtime win for Minnesota, but that 3-on-3 was about as good as it gets. I'm not a huge proponent of the shootout. I know it's there because you don't want ties. That's how it used to be back in the day. You don't want these overtimes like in the playoffs. That's what makes the NHL playoffs so special because it's continuous overtime until someone scores, and it's 5-on-5. So you've got games that go to 3, 4, 5 overtimes, and these guys have played like 3 games in a span of a couple hours.
So it stays like that in the postseason now? So
exactly.
NHL postseason stays 5-on-5.
Correct. Goes 5-on-5, and you play 20-minute periods until someone ends the game with a goal. But again, that's what's special about the playoffs. In the regular season, you can't have that because if games go that long, these guys are. I don't think the NHL Players Association would ever go for that because these guys would just get absolutely dragged out and just absolutely exhausted. So I think it would benefit if you added another 2 or 3 minutes on the clock, maybe go to an 8-minute overtime of 3-on-3. I think 10 might be a little bit too long, and then you have to result in the shootout just to try and protect these players. So I think another couple minutes. And lastly, I will say on overtime, there are power plays that happen in overtime. And sometimes what we've seen is, say there's 30 seconds left in overtime, okay? The other team takes a penalty. You only can score within that 30-second time range, right? Because then the clock will go down, the buzzer will go, and then it'll go to a shootout. What if there's a penalty taken with 30 seconds left, a tripping penalty, right, a minor, 2 minutes? What if you continue to play for the entirety of the 2 minutes? So you get an extra minute and a half at the end of overtime to try and score and end the game in OT.
In penalty, with your power play.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it would kind of be like, for those familiar with soccer, kind of like added time at the end of the game where technically the period has ended, but it's continuing to go because you earned a power play. So I think that could be because there are a lot of overtimes that end, and there's still power play time left over. There's still meat on the bone there. So who knows? Maybe I'm just speaking into the ether, and none of this is ever going to come to change. But I feel like those are a couple of things that could be great to promote some more offense in the game. Well,
I love it. Nick, you've been a lot of help. Thanks for answering some crazy questions and kind of giving us some insights. A lot of fun. It's fun to really kind of get into the schemes of the NHL with you. I'd love to have you come in studio with Scotty and I And because now that college football is wrapping up, it's really time for me to jump deep into this NHL stuff. I've got to become more and more familiar with it. So hopefully we can get you into studio for a little while.
Yeah, Hans, that would be great. Happy to do it anytime that works for the schedule. And at the end of the day, man, I'm just trying to spread the joy and the knowledge and everything about what I think is the greatest sport in the world. So we're happy to have you aboard, and hopefully Utah is able to get a big win here today in Seattle.
Well, you do a good job at it. Thanks, Nick.
You got it, Hans. Appreciate it. Keep up the great work.
There you go, Nick Olczyk. He is the TV analyst with the Utah Hockey Club and does so much more for and with them. Fantastic insight there. A lot of fun. Mitch Harper's going to join us next. I think he's back from San Antonio, and I think he's been at BYU basketball practice, so he's been busy, but we'll have a little bit of fun coming up with Mitch next.
This is DJ and PK.
BYU kicking the ever-living crap out of Colorado. How about just rolling in the mud like a pig over what we saw? What would be a better win than that? Defense was dialed in. Offense was good enough. Made a few mistakes. But the special teams, usually when I look at BYU special teams, I'm just hoping they don't lose the battle. Well, they not only did not lose it, they won it. Overall, pretty impressive. Taking a quarterback who didn't win a game last year and turning him into winning 11 games this year. And now the future, all of a sudden, now we're talking about, should they get to the playoff next year in the span of one season? I felt it before the bowl game, and I certainly feel it more so after the bowl game, that they should have gotten more consideration.
Catch DJ and PK mornings from 6 to 10 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Just off the freeway in American Fork, Doug Smith